Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour. I'm Cindy Sansone Braff. My co host and producer, Nicole Semidai, is here today, and we have a special guest, Jana Zarkin. She is amazing, by the way. I did a reading for her not too long ago, and Spirit told me she should be doing a reading for me. Okay, she's incredible. She's a developer of the Soul Magic system of vibrational healing. She has also been a licensed mental health practitioner for 35 years. Jana developed Soul Magic Healing, which is a quantum and vibrational method of lifting blocks and limiting patterns from the cellular memory. Among her other many credentials, Jana is an ordained interfaith minister, trained labyrinth facilitator, Reiki master, rebirth breath worker, certified hypnotherapist, and color and sound healer. Wow, amazing. I love her website, and on it it says magic and miracles in everyday life. I love that. That is just phenomenal. And we've been talking on the radio show and on our podcast this year about 2025 being the year of energy. So imagine me meeting Jana just in the beginning of this year. That was just incredible. And energy is all about frequencies, okay? And I'm going to ask Jana, why is your current focus on frequency?
Well, frequency is where I started with Soul Magic, and I have Soul Magic a very long time. It was a big process creating it from all of the healing works that I had learned at the time, and that was 40 years ago, maybe more.
Wow.
Um, but it really does come down to if you want healing, if you want to align yourself with what you want, if you want to be at peace and harmony with your surroundings and your relationships and all that, it's
Hmm.
all about frequency. It's all about how you vibrate. And how you vibrate is determined by a number of things, especially your emotions. Now, I'm a mental health practitioner. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been doing it for a very long time. And when a couple or a person is working in therapy and they're working with their feelings, the whole way that they feel in their life changes. And it changes because they're experiencing their emotions differently, they're experiencing their thoughts differently, and that's increasing their frequency because they're coming more to peace. So at this point in life where everything is rocking and rolling for all of us, so much more important that we allow ourselves to find ways to come to peace. And because that is the highest frequency, years ago, I can't remember which of the researchers did it, but they got a scale of all the emotions and what the frequencies were for each one. And the highest frequency is peace. Love
Wow.
is up there, joy is up there, but peace is the highest. And my guides have always told me my whole life, anytime I ever ask for help, their first thing they always say to me is, be at peace.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And we're going to talk frequencies. We always talked as children, but no one said it was real. We thought they were metaphors when we would say they're not in the same wavelength. They're not a good vibe. Oh, they're a
Mhm.
bad vibe. This person drains me. They're sucking
Mhm.
me dry. Okay, so
Mhm.
low
Absolutely.
frequencies suck us dry. Okay, and higher frequencies from the heart, from the soul, those really lift us. So, really, if you like attracts like. So, if you're looking for a relationship and you seem to be only gravitating, people coming to you like a magnet who are very low frequencies, very unhealed, well, your vibration may need to be lifted, okay? And even, Jan, I'm sure as a therapist, part of why people come to you is to get an energy infusion, to get a lift from you, to feel a higher frequency, which is really important. Now, what factors influence frequency the most?
Well, like I said, the most important thing is your emotion. And what influences your emotion is your thinking, are the pictures that you're making in your mind, your subconscious, which is, a lot of our programming is 95% is subconscious. That means we got programmed in when we were really little kids, and we're living out those programs that we got from our environment, our parents, our caretakers, whoever, our experiences from when we were really little up to 7. And then we were wet clay and it all got stamped in, and then we lived that out the rest of our lives. So the thing that we need to be aware of is what's happening in our lives.
In our
That's
minds.
how we know what the programming is. And that's how we know what we need to change. And that's what Soul Magic does. That's why I developed it, is because
Wow.
I was watching my own patterns in my life. And I worked very hard. I mean, I've been doing energy work forever. And I've been doing crystals and yoga and all that kind of stuff before anybody thought it was cool. Um, and and really, I got to see that I was living out patterns that I didn't understand where they came from, but they did
No.
come from my family. They did come from the programming I got. And in order for me to have a different life, I had to watch what I was manifesting, what I was living in my life, and I had to find a way to change that programming. And that's at the cellular level. That's at the level of the pictures that come up for you in your life, the pictures you make in your mind when you scare yourself. When you scare your little kid inside, and I work a lot with people and their inner parts, their inner children and other inner parts. Um, we can do that to ourselves. We scare ourselves. We're really good at it. So, and these days, we're all kind of a little bit working with that fear because there's so much changing. But you have such a great tool when you work with those parts of yourself, and that changes your frequency and it changes your programming. It changes the pictures that you're making, change the outcome that you're having in your life.
You were talking about peace. The more you live in the now, the frequency
Yes.
of the now, not
Yes.
in the past where you're telling your story
Hmm.
over and over again, which brings nothing
Hmm.
but, not being peaceful. I mean, if you've told your story to a therapist once, if you've told it to your therapist 50 times, I think you could let go of that story, that narrative, okay? Because living in the past is really a lousy frequency, especially if you had a torturous childhood. What, do you want to go back there every day? We got to go there every day. So if we can lift our frequency in the now, because for the most part, most days are okay. I mean, not every day some disasters happening. Not every day we, I always think if we're not, in a hurricane, a tsunami, earthquake, I'm not sick, I'm not in jail, my frequency should be pretty high. But if I'm going to go
Hmm.
back to what happened 40 years ago or 20 years ago, I'm not going to be at a sense of peace. So I think
Absolutely.
living in the now and bringing up the
Hmm.
frequency now today is important. Do you agree with
Hmm.
that, Jana?
Absolutely. It brings you into the present moment. And one of the other tools that I use with people to bring them to peace is grounding. And
Okay.
grounding is a basic therapy tool. And when you ground yourself, you bring yourself into this moment. So it's absolutely, totally, and completely accurate. And when I work with people with anxiety, that's what we're doing, is we're coming into this moment. In this moment, you're safe. In this moment, you're
Hmm.
okay. In this moment, no one is threatening you. In this moment, you are all right. So that's a really important tool to come into the present moment. But
Exactly.
sometimes what happens is when we're very distracted by the things that happen to us, we sometimes need more support than that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we need tools like Soul Magic to lift some of that out, or I do a lot of somatic work with people where they're focusing on where
Hmm.
they're holding the traumas in their body and working on releasing it out of their nervous system. Those are all things that also influence your frequency and also influence you not reliving over and over and over again, because you're actually able to release it out of your nervous system.
Right.
Part of the
Exactly.
reason I became a Labyrinth facilitator, which I love, and I have built Labyrinth here at my retreat, in my place in New York and here in Florida, um, is because the Labyrinth is a way to step into a higher frequency. It's such a lovely, to me, it's like stepping into a sacred bubble because it's all sacred geometry. And sacred geometry creates frequencies that lift you up. That's why people have always used, yantras and
Yeah.
the flower of life and things like that. The Hindus and Buddhists have used all of that, sacred geometry kind of imagery. Um, but so a labyrinth is that it creates a frequency on a spot on the ground. It's amazing what labyrinths do. They can pull water, they can, just create peace. And my experience, and I'm energetically sensitive, but my experience is that most people come to peace when they walk the labyrinth. And so it's a very magical way to increase your frequency, to bring yourself to peace, to come to yourself in this moment, like we were saying, to come back to you, to find your peace. So when you walk the labyrinth, once you get to the center, you've had a chance to kind of let your mind do its monkey mind thing. And by the time you get to the center, you've kind of detoxed a little bit. So all of these pieces play in Soul Magic, and they also play separately in various the other tools that I use.
Wow.
I also use tuning forks and singing bowls and voice,
Singing.
and we use color. I was many years ago, many years ago, when I was first doing healing work. I was in a group that was working with cancer patients, and it was a team of us who were in a meditation group together, and each of us did, a piece of what we worked with the client. And these were all people that were told, go home and die. You got
Oh,
6 weeks, you got 6 months, whatever. And we worked with these people. I worked with them with diet because I used to do that work. I used to teach healthy cooking. And we counseled them, we did energy work with them, and we did color and sound therapy. And we used both the ears and also the color on their brain. We had a whole system that we were given by spirit to which color and corresponded to which part of the brain. And pieces of that are in Soul Magic still. Um, and all these people came to us for healing, and all but one of them who said they didn't want healing, they all got healed.
wow.
So that was many years ago. So all these pieces are playing, and that's the reason that I'm always looking for things that will help to shift a person's frequency.
And I love the way, it's about cellular healing because in our cells, all the trauma is housed in our souls. It's there. It's
Hmm.
in our souls, in our bodies. It's in there deep. So even if you clear the mind, if you do the talk therapy, because psychology is the study of the soul. So if you get it out in your mouth and you talk about it, there's still the trauma in the body that then comes out as illness. Okay.
Absolutely.
And, there's patterns of healing. Carolyn Mason, her studies and her lectures always talks about how she sees patterns of illness, and
Hmm.
how certain kinds of trauma cause this and certain kinds of trauma cause that. So have
Right.
you found that the cellular healing really works on people? Have you seen it help with illness and, help them
Absolutely.
heal
Well,
themselves?
cellular healing is your subconscious. That's been, stamped into, your nervous system. That is really, your cells are carrying that. Also, your cells do carry your DNA consciousness, which is some of your past life stuff. It'll carry some of your ancestral stuff. You remember that. They've done actual studies where they have found that offspring of mice that had trauma when they were before they had children, and it obviously changed their DNA. When they had children, the children of these traumatized mice would respond as if they had had the trauma.
Wow.
So they know that it's been transmitted now through the DNA. So think about it, all the generations that we're carrying now, thousands of generations of their trauma, and they've had all kinds. We're carrying that. So sometimes we have responses we don't understand, but we're
Right.
still living out this reality. We're living out a not good enough, or we're living out a struggling with money or struggling with life or not receiving, not allowing ourselves to be loved or supported or any of those issues. And those are all basic issues that I always work with people to clear in therapy and in soul magic. Those are the 5 basic sessions: the safety, receiving, deserving, worthy, struggling with life, and good enough. Those are
Wow.
everybody's pretty much got those, and they come down the line, on our DNA. So having to work with the cellular program is really important, because all
Wow.
of that is contained there and it's playing out in your life right now. So all you have to do is look at the patterns that are over and over in your life right now,
Right.
and those are the patterns we want to pay attention to and lift. And the way you lift it is by raising your frequency.
Because our minds are really able to see patterns. We just kind of deny them. It's the wonderful mechanisms of denial. I'll have someone who's, had the same disastrous marriage 4 times. Okay. And as soon as I pick up the pattern that you keep picking people like your father and you're still trying to fix that son of a bitch. And,
Yeah.
can you now admit mommy couldn't fix daddy? He's not fixable. And they look at me, what? Like, and all of a sudden the pattern's broken like that. But 4 marriages, they couldn't see the pattern because
Yeah.
we are in our subconscious mind and we can't
Yeah.
bring it forth, but just bringing forth a pattern. So patterns are what my mind sees when I do a reading. I'm sure it's the same thing with you, Jana, where in two
Absolutely.
seconds, it's like a computer. I say, okay, this behavior is because of, and this pattern and this is going to lead to that. Sometimes I'm not so sure if it's psychic or just ability to see patterns and where they're going to go if we don't stop those patterns. So
Hmm.
it's really interesting the way you were talking about the generational trauma. I mean, they saw it
Hmm.
with Holocaust survivors and their children. How
Absolutely.
the children had really, like
Yeah.
I had a friend who was, her parents were a Holocaust survivor, and she went completely gray at 19 years old. I mean, she had
Yeah.
such trauma transmitted to her. It was unbelievable. So, and she said it wasn't as if her parents ever talked about it because back then people really didn't talk about the Holocaust very much. So,
A lot of those survivors did not talk about what
so it
happened.
wasn't like it was talked about. And she said her parents were never abusive, but there was always a frequency that we now know frequency of sorrow in the house. Okay.
Hmm.
Even when
Trauma.
there was a celebration, there was always a sadness in her mother's face or something that was not said with words, but
Yeah.
was felt at the energetic level.
But no, when you and I were discussing having Jenna on the show initially, Cindy, I was not sure how much I really knew about what Jana does. And as Jana has been speaking, I'm actually more familiar with what she does than I thought because a couple of years ago I went through a traumatic experience, and you know what that trauma was, Cindy. And when I had to go into therapy because I had severe PTSD, and good old vitamin G grounding, like that's something that my therapist, took me through, in a great deal. The whole concept of the labyrinth, I didn't quite understand that it was like an actual thing. But every year when I go on one of my motorcycle trips, it's one of the trips that I take to kind of clear my head, clear my mind. It gives me my reset, from the summer into the fall. And we go to Block Island, and in Block Island, there is a labyrinth. I don't know if anybody realizes that, but on Block Island there is a labyrinth there that I walk, and we make it a point to walk it every single time we go.
That's
Um, you know, like
awesome.
like even when we just go for a day trip, we'll just rent scooters and we'll go straight over to the labyrinth and we'll walk the labyrinth. And again, it's just like a reset. And I didn't put two and two together when we were discussing what Jana actually did. But one of the things that like, I mean, obviously you mentioned the tuning forks and the bowls and everything. How does that, like, I know that when my therapist was taking me through things, tapping was big, music was big, the different tones, listening to like the binaural beats and things like that. That was a thing. But how do like the tuning forks and the singing bowls, like how do you incorporate that into a therapy? And how could like the layman, so to speak, just kind of pick it up? And how do they begin with something like that? Like what are they supposed to be paying attention to with regard to those things? Or is it just listening to the sound? Or is it more involved than that?
Depends on where you want to come to it from and what you want to do with it. I mean, anybody can benefit from working with the tuning forks or the singing bowls. Every tuning fork and every singing bowl has a frequency. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on which frequency you're vibrating to, or which frequency feels soothing for you, which
Mm-hmm.
frequency is helping your nervous system shift into a more peaceful place or into a more healed place. I mean, when you're healed, you're at peace. So ultimately, that's where we're always going. Sometimes we need a certain frequency to help the nervous system release that trauma, and that's the wonderful part of the sound therapy. And everybody's getting on the bandwagon for sound at this point, but the sound therapy has a nonverbal ability to shift us and shift our frequency because it is frequency. The tuning forks, I was trained by a few different people with the tuning forks, and they have the ability, the binaural beats do the same thing. They have the ability to help balance your brain, right? And that's what you want, because your brain is, you either a logical thinker or you're a creative thinker. And what the goal is to make those parts work together, so that part of the reason we look at the subconscious patterns and what you were saying, Cindy, about the awareness is
Right.
your mind is for noticing consciously what you're doing. Right.
Right.
That's how you can use your mind. Otherwise, your mind is just going to pull you all over the place. It'll just be monkey mind, and
No,
you'll
that's
never
right.
focus where you need to focus to take yourself forward. But your mind is for the purpose of working with your creative side. And so the awareness that you have when you see a pattern, that's where you get the aha. You go, oh,
Oh,
like when your mind gets it, then everything starts to click in your brain. So what happens when you use things like binaural beats, which is sound,
Mm-hmm.
or it can also be, the originally AMDR, which is what that
Yep.
comes from, is back and forth with your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Then they started using it with sound, but that's what the tuning forks do. And the other piece is that tuning forks, especially the ones that I use from Dr. John Bellier, they have a lot of overtones.
oh,
So you think you're striking the tuning fork at this particular hertz, but there's many, many, many overtones and undertones that you're hearing that you don't even realize you're hearing, and they influence your brain, and they
Mm-hmm.
influence your frequency in your field, and they influence your cells. So that's what we're after. We're always after influencing the cells and influencing the nervous system. So it's influencing your whole nervous system. It's influencing all those neural connections. So I will use the bowls around the person or over a chakra or over wherever I'm guided to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But the tuning forks, I have a weighted fork and I will put that on the body on a bone, or things like that. You can't put it on bones that are fragile, but you can put it on, because what it does is it creates figurates in your body. It creates it,
wow.
and it vibrates through your bones, and your bones talk about feel it in your bones. Your bones are all about that reprogramming of
Wow.
those ancestral patterns, and programming in your cells is changing when that frequency circulates back and forth through your skeletal system. But also I do energy work. Um, and all of those things matter. My mom is 101 years old,
What?
and she's
God
struggling with,
bless her.
her body doing things that she doesn't want it to do at this point, even though she's super sharp mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I worked on her with the tuning forks, and I gave her some energy work. And she said to me the next day, it's the first time I have felt normal in so long.
Wow.
And for her, that was huge. When I studied, God, when I first opened up and I was studying Edgar Casey, he talked about a man who only saw God in everything. And like there would be an accident and he would just walk through it like nothing happened, because he'd be unscathed, because his vision, his focus and his energy was on something much, much higher. So he would just walk through whatever scene was going on and it didn't affect him. And that's kind of where we're all headed for right now. The lesson of this time, and I know I came here to be here for this time, to
Oh, yeah.
hold a higher frequency for the planet, to help humanity pick it up so that we can take the next steps. Um, it's about that. It's about holding that frequency and not letting the craziness bring you down. So
Wow.
one
Also,
of the
like,
things that I like to do when people come here for personal individual retreats, that's what I'm creating here now in this new space that I have in Florida, which is awesome, and a beautiful piece of property that Spirit gave me and told me I belonged here, even though I never would have thought this is where I end up. Spirit gave me this place and said, gather community here because right now people are feeling disconnected, which isn't a great frequency, and they need each other and they need to gather together in a safe place in love and in community and doing things that raise frequency. And so I had new moon ceremony here the other last week or whenever it was to begin to create the community that I want here. And people also will come here so they can have their own personal individual retreats with me. I take care of them the whole time they're here. I cook for them and I do all the healing works that I do. So I have a whole menu of healing work that people can pick from. They can walk the labyrinth, they can have soul magic, they can have energy work, they can have sound, they can have food, they can have sit in nature in this gorgeous piece of land that I was given with a vortex on it, no less. A multi-dimensional vortex was here. My friends came and they said, there's a vortex on this property. Let's go find it. So we went, and sure enough, we found it, and it is a multi-dimensional vortex. The first time I stepped into it, I really felt like they were going to pick me up and take me away. It's
wow.
so powerful, wonderful.
Okay, so now for people who don't know what a multidimensional vortex is, can you explain a little bit about what that
Well,
means?
Right.
And also,
I can
this
try.
is going to be a two-parter for you. So the first one is, can you explain a little bit of what that means to have a multidimensional vortex? And secondly, is that type of energy or that type of bridge, as I always usually like equate it, is that something where people who are not normally sensitive will suddenly become sensitive? Or is that a place more or less where, you know, anybody can just pick up on that and you just are very, very unaware of what's happening to you?
It is a portal. So it is kind of a bridge between this dimension and other higher frequency
Okay, like the
dimensions.
first dimension.
Same as being on the labyrinth, it's a kind of a portal. It raises your frequency so you can contact other unseen, which is why you can connect with people on the other side. A portal, a vortex is a portal. So it can connect you to other places if you allow it to.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody will experience it differently. One of the women in my one of the groups that gathers here does Reiki. She really saw her multidimensional self when she stood there. Other people have found
I don't know
nothing.
about
Some
that.
people have felt just amazing things. So everybody's experience is really different. It's just an opportunity to be in touch with unseen levels of
Mm-hmm.
life. I
Okay.
think that's really more what it's about. And I think it's fun to play with it. I don't think it's anything to be scared of. I think it's just a tool. It's something that you can say, hey, I want to experience that. Let me see what I experience. And, some days I feel nothing, and other days I feel other things. Every time I play in it, it's different, but it's a place to play.
And to simplify it, we always talk about the 3D, 4D, and 5D dimension. Of course, there's many other dimensions, but 3D is fear, it's ego, and it resonates very low frequency. When we're near
Hmm.
3D people who are anxious and depressed and greedy and selfish and
Hmm.
they just vibrate really at an angry, depressed level, we feel
Hmm.
drained. When we're near with 4D people, they're heartfelt and they're warm and they're a warm energy and infusion. When they're going to the store, they're kind to the cashier, they compliment her, they thank her. And then there's
Hmm.
5D, which is of soul, and that's where telepathy lies. That's where you can talk to people on the other side. And the vortex, the 5D energy that came down in 2024 makes us all telepathic, makes us all really live a lot in the 5D dimension without any vortexes. It's really opened now. So if you go to a place where there's an energy vortex, I'm sure you're easily in the 5D and can go to other dimensions. But
Yeah.
just know that the frequency of 3D energy is very low and where illness and sickness is going to take place. If you stay more 4D heartfelt and 5D soul, your immune system lifts. You're not going to catch everything that's out there. You're going to feel safe and grounded. And you're going to be the kind of person that people are going to want to be near. Whatever you got, whatever you're selling, they want. Okay? They may not be sure what it is, but I want what that person's got. You know, when someone's 3D, we're like, oh, I don't ever want to go there. You know, we want to get away from them. So, is there anything else, Nicole, that you wanted to ask her?
She kind of covered everything in the other questions.
Also, this is a very 21st century discussion
Yeah,
where
it is.
it's kind of it should be a normal discussion. It shouldn't be woo woo out there anymore, like what we're saying. I mean, it never was woo woo out there. We knew it instinctively as children.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be near certain people. And
We still don't want to be near certain
don't
people.
want to
Let's
be
get
them.
that
And
straight.
as empaths, we'd go in a room and say,
Let's
oh,
get that
I want to get away
straight.
from there. Okay? So we instinctively know this, but we never really talked about it. And so what Jan is trying to do is make the world a little easier place to
Yeah.
understand. It's not so complicated, but she's an incredible blend of Eastern and Western, you know, with metaphysical and psychology, science, art, nature, all rolled into one big healing. So what we're hearing from her is that she uses many tools to heal. One tool isn't enough, and she's so instinctual. She knows that this person needs more singing bowls, that vibration. This one needs a little more nature. This one, we got to talk the story. This person does not talk their story.
Draw it.
We
Or
got to do
draw it.
that. So
Yeah.
that is hopefully more of the wave of healing, because one thing, you know, after a while, if you keep going to talk therapy and that's all you're doing is talking the story, you get stuck. Okay,
Yeah.
once
You're
you
using
talk
your
the
mind.
story,
You're not
you need to
using
be
your nervous
lifted
Yeah.
to higher frequencies. And that's amazing. Now, the breath worker, the rebirth breath worker, I am kind of intrigued by that one. I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Nicole? I don't know what it is. So,
I mean, again, like I had no idea that I knew as much as I did because, thanks to my PTSD, and going to a specialist in PTSD, I had no idea I knew so much about this topic. So, but yes, I have done breath work before. And it's like was like the basis. That was like day one. This is what we're going to do. We're going to breathe because we're okay as long as we're breathing in and out. And that tied into the grounding, and as my therapist called it, vitamin G. Like you take vitamins to help your body stay strong, and you take vitamins to help your body ward off against disease. And it's just as important to connect to nature and to connect to your roots and to root yourself in the ground. Just like anything, like if you think about it, we are nothing but energy, and energy is electrical impulses. And what happens if you don't ground something that's electric is it backfires, or it can burn itself out, and you have to properly ground things not to have a fire on your hands. So
Your
it's the
nervous
same
system
thing
is
with
on fire.
people. Yeah, it's the same exact thing with people, is that you are running electric, and you are going to burn yourself or somebody else unless you ground yourself. You're just going to keep going and going and going. So yeah, so I mean, I'm familiar with like a lot of these things, ironically enough, and I had no idea that I was.
Well, rebirthing is more than the kind of breath work you might do in therapy.
Okay.
Rebirthing is based on a Kundalini yogic breathing. It was given to Leonard Orr, who I actually I was very blessed to spend time with before he left the planet. But he was given this by Babaji, who was the immortal master, guru. He was on the planet in one body for 2,000 years. He came back. He was in another body for a while. But he would come and go. So he gave rebirthing to Leonard, and it's a circular breathing, and it's based on a Kundalini kind of breathing, and it's you don't stop, and you do it for at least an hour. You might do it for more. Many times I would end up doing it for 3 hours because it's a breath work that has a wave. So you start breathing and you go into a rhythm eventually, and it increases you increase the frequency of your breath, and it
Mm-hmm.
starts to move all the chi in your cells. So this is another way that you raise your frequency, another way that you move energy around your cells, release some of the subconscious trauma, some of the subconscious programming, the ancestral stuff, because you're moving the energy all around your cells. And you do that with your breath because your breath contacts every single cell in your body. So, rebirthing will take you through a journey, a whole journey. It's a wave. It takes you up to a peak. Stuff happens. You feel things. You see things. It's a very intense process, and then it subsides, and you come out of that with whatever healing you have, whatever realizations you have. It's a phenomenal practice. And I was trained as a rebirther in 1985. I rebirthed hundreds of people, hundreds of times. I've been through the process with many, many people. But what happened for me, and this is actually where Soul Magic came from, is I realized that all the other trainings that I had done, all the energetic trainings, and I always did energy work anyway, just naturally, but I trained in everything that came out at the time. T-Touch and Janet Hand was, everything was just beginning then. Therapeutic touch, polarity training, all of that. I trained in all of that at the beginning when people were just starting to learn about energy.
That's
Well, we
wonderful.
are talked about frequency today, and when people want to change their life and move forward, they have to get out of the lower frequency, the 3D fear, the living in the past, the weight of the past will make you have to wait to have your life change. If you're going to carry all that baggage, that weight, you're never going to go forward. It's
It will
letting
never
go of
change.
the lower frequencies. And when we do that, our life can change on the dime, can change quickly. We can move forward. I mean, humans really don't like change oftentimes, so they dilly dally and drag their feet and lollygag until
No,
finally things get so bad and the universe kicks them forward. But what we want you to get out
I'm
of
not familiar with that at all, Cindy.
no, none
I
of
think
us are.
most of
No,
us are
we've all
not.
moved very quickly out of toxic things. I mean,
I'm not
like
familiar
that.
with that at all.
No, but it's really about getting in a higher frequency, finding, that better place. And sometimes we do need to ask for help. Sometimes we do need to ask for a therapist or a psychic or a
Mm-hmm.
friend,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who can help lift our frequency. So if you're feeling a little with low frequency, do the things, ground yourself, go for a walk, get out there in nature, listen to music, even do things that vibrate higher. I love the way Janet talked about she serves food. Eat
Mm-hmm.
higher frequency foods. We all know what our higher frequency foods are. Okay, eating Twinkies and Fritos and drinking Coca Cola is only going to get you like not in a good place. As a matter of fact, you keep eating that crap, you're going to lose both your feet. So we're not going to be moving forward if we eat that stuff. So
That escalated very quickly.
we
So I'm
we
gonna have a
ask
Twinkie. So I'm gonna lose
right,
my foot.
right. We're gonna lose our foot. So now we have an excuse why we're not going forward and we're not grounding ourselves. So, I really enjoyed having Jenna, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know how they could reach you, Jenna. If they're
Yes, please.
let us know.
Well, you can reach me right now at jzarchin@gmail.com because I'm waiting for them to clean my website, but eventually you can reach me at soulmagichealing.com. And there is a page on there about the retreat here in Florida, where you can access all of the menu of services, all the healing things that I do, your ability to be here and structure your own very personal retreat for as many days or a half a day or a whole day or 5 days, whatever you
Wonderful.
want, and I will take care of you um, and help you find your way to your highest healing. If I, whatever I can offer. I mean, obviously, you always have a choice to say, I don't want to make that step. But most people, when they're given the tools, it's just lovely to have things just lifted away, or you have your ahas, or you walk the labyrinth and you get your insights and you get your frequency raised and you start to look at life differently. And the way that you change your life is by looking at life differently, even if it hasn't changed yet.
Well, can you slowly spell your email again? I will put it in, before the show, but just, spell it slow so they can,
My email,
yes.
it's JZARCHIN @gmail. And you can always email me, or you can message me probably through the janazorchin.com site. There is a contact form there, but eventually when my Soul Magic site is clean, hopefully by tomorrow, soulmagichealing.com. So just the way it's spelled, SOUL, magic, MAGIC, healing, HEALING.com.
Wow.
It's kind of a
Very
fun way
cool.
of
Well, this is
extending the healing.
fascinating, wasn't it, Nicole?
Yeah, very much so.
Very
Very, very much so.
enlightening, and thank you for sharing your time with us. And
Hmm.
I have a lot of Florida clients, and people visit Florida all the time. So now don't just go to Disney World.
Yeah.
Get some retreat healing over
Come
here.
visit me. I
Well,
love it. I love when
thank you.
people come here. It's one of my joys. And joy is one of those higher frequencies. So do things that make you happy.
So
Do
it's
things that
healing for
bring you
you as
joy.
well as other people. It's good.
Absolutely. It's my joy to do this work, and it makes me happy, and hopefully it makes people that come happy and healed. And
It's
that's
awesome.
why I'm here.
Well, thank you. And Nicole, you were asked some very probing questions today.
I try. I try.
I
I remember, guys, that these are tools. When we're younger, we're given a toolbox and you've got a hammer and you've got some nails and you've got a screwdriver. But these days, we've got screw guns and we've got better, more efficient ways to do things.
tools.
So just add these things to your toolbox so that when you are down to your next task, you have the right tools to complete the job. That's the most realistic, logical way that I can put all of this for those who listen and are just kind of going, I don't know. That's what this is today, guys. This is just taking a new tool, putting it in the box, and calling upon it when you need it. So, live, learn, and, contact Jana, contact Cindy. And these ladies seemed very, very equipped to help people in all stages of their spiritual healing. So, thank you very much to both of you today.
Thank you so
Bye.
much for
Bye,
having me.
everybody.
So fun and lovely to play this toolbox.